product title, I think you have seen the Chief Product Officer for GE Healthcare. He wears multiple hats in GE, as far as I know. So I have met him in various incarnations of his roles, although his title hasn't changed, I think, in a couple of years. But and most recently, I think 2 years ago, GE formed the Sustainable Healthcare Solutions Group or business unit. That's one of the first business units that's headquartered outside of, I guess, developed world. So it's headquartered in India for the whole world, sustainable healthcare. And Vikram, you are the Chief Product Officer for that business unit, right? And the CEO of that, whom Vikram reports to, she also lives in India and operates out of India. So that has been a fantastic story for GE India as such. And I have met Vikram in various things from cost out to design and innovation, and always very impressed. So when Pinkesh and Rahul talked about having this industry connect from GE, product management, innovation, the first name that came to mind was Vikram, and I'm glad that he accepted the invitation and is able to come here and spend a couple of hours with us. So with that, Vikram, why don't you have a seat? And since it's 2 hours, we will let you sit.
Sure. Maybe we
can
keep changing.
Yeah, we can keep changing. So I think thanks to the cohort here, I think many of them went through the LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
And have lots of questions for you. So I spent some time looking at the questions and sort of divided into sort of 5 categories. And we'll go through that in some sense. And obviously, it's not just me and you talking. We'll have questions coming from the audience beyond this, as the conversation goes. But why don't we start with just yourself beyond the bio and tell us, what do you think of your role, especially for these audience. Most of them are aspiring or already product managers.
Sounds good. Am I audible at the back? Yeah. Good. So first of all, thanks for having me over. I think I'll have to thank Yogesh for inviting me to this place because one, I personally derive a lot of pleasure from sharing because I believe every time I share, I always take something back. So I'll look forward to that dialogue with you guys. Very briefly about me, I am originally from Chennai. I moved to Bangalore after running my own shop for a couple of years in engineering. And when I moved to Bangalore, it was for GE, for healthcare. So I've been in the healthcare domain for 19 years now. And in GE, I've done a variety of roles. Most of the time, I would say 70% of my time in GE has been in technology. So core technology roles, product development, engineering, running engineering teams, functional management roles, so on and so forth. And the last 6 years or so has been around emerging markets. I would say more around business development, product management, innovation, things that actually have now helped GE build a really solid critical mass for our solutions for emerging markets, which is what prompted the company then to take a very important and big milestone, which is the headquarter of business focus on emerging markets in India. It's the first of its kind for GE across any business. But then again, I would say, while that seems like a big milestone, it's also an early start for us. I would say we're still very young in our journey, 18 months since we started the business. So miles to go before we sleep, like the quote, but more importantly, lots of learnings ahead. And I can share with you enough mistakes we've made during this journey as well. So it's been a great career so far, thankfully.
Yep. Thanks, Vikram. So just to give audience and you also perspective how we are thinking about it, I think a lot of excitement about your first couple of years in what you did. So we wanted to hear from that also. Then your journey within GE from technology, I think you started as a design engineer, from hardcore mechanical design engineer. One of the things is when you said technology, you broadly consider mechanical, electrical, and not just the software.
That's right.
So many times the technology word is used as only software, but that's not the case with your career. Then we wanted to focus a little bit on product management and, to give some insights on your experience. There is a lot of interest, although nobody, I think, directly works in healthcare marketing. There are a couple of people who are in the peripheral business units. A lot of interest in healthcare in India, just from social standpoint. So wanted to hear your perspective on that. And then finally, we'll sort of talk about product management careers in GE. Okay,
that sounds interesting.
Okay, so why don't we start with you ran your shop for 2 years as a mechanical engineer.
Tell Absolutely. So here's what happened. So I grew up as a single child in my family. By the way, please please make it a dialogue whenever you want. Put your hands up, interject. I'd prefer that. So I grew up as a single child. My mother is a doctor, so she is an obstetrician, which means she delivers a lot of babies. My dad was a mechanical engineer. My weekend hobby was very, very simple. Dad used to leave for his factory at 7 a.m. So we used to have a small scale industry that we used to run at the industrial estate in Chennai. So every Saturday morning, 7 a.m., I used to jump. He used to have an open top Willys Jeep. I don't know if you guys have seen a Willys Jeep, but the reason why I remember that very vividly is because he literally built it by himself by buying parts from the local chop shops. So it was a very interesting thing. No, yeah, now thinking back, I should have kept it, but some things are always clearer in retrospect. So here's what it was. So every Saturday, go to the factory, work on the lathe, work on the milling machines. It was just fun building parts, even as a kid. So for me, when I hit my 11th grade, when I had to choose, and growing up 30 years ago, the choices were obvious, right? Everybody knows that. Engineering and medicine, these are the two popular choices. I had to choose between one. And even though I was actually comfortable with blood, the other interesting thing with me was, I think I've probably been to the most number of labor and deliveries as a child that I know of. I don't know anybody else who's been to as many labor and delivery wards, because I used to go with my mom. In those days, nannies weren't heard of. My mom was a doctor, very busy one. She used to take me along, keep me in the ward. One of the nurses used to take care of me while she used to take care of the patient. I was comfortable around blood. I could have pursued medicine as well, but I said, no, fine, I have fun building these paths, so let me do engineering. So I did my mechanical engineering, and just like any other wave during those days, okay, if you finish mechanical engineering and you're a high grader, good student, you went down the MBA path or you went down the master's path. Very rarely would you join a TCS. Okay? And in those days, TCS used to hire the entire cohort of the college. When they come in, if you did not want to get hired, you actually had to stay away from writing the exam. So it was one of those funny things that we did. So it was just total coincidence. I knew a friend who knew a friend who knew a professor in Houston who said, fluid dynamics is a great place to be. So I said, fine. What do I do with fluid dynamics? Well, you can pursue jobs in the oil and gas industry. You can pursue jobs in automotive engineering. You can go into the space industry. And all those things, when you hear things as a kid, it's like, wow, these are things I want to pursue. So I went fluid dynamics. So masters in Houston. 3 months before I finished my masters, I get a phone call from my mother. And that's when life changed for me, because she said, Dad's been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Test case 3 months. So for me, it took me a couple of days to digest the news. But at that point, the most important decision for me, which I today believe was a foundational change in the way I think, was to make up my mind whether to go to India for the long term or the short term, because I knew the realities. If I had to come down to India, there were several things that my dad was doing that couldn't have been just let loose. There were several people that were dependent on him, people who used to work in the industry. There was an ecosystem around him there were suppliers who were dependent on him, there were customers who were dependent on him. Very large ecosystem of a business. Then there was my mother, and she was alone. She was never used to being alone, and that social problem. So I came back to India. 3 months later, I lost my dad, but I decided, fine, my immediate, problem was to take care of the business ecosystem. So that's when I actually got into the business. I enjoyed doing it for a year and a half. When I say enjoyed, I enjoyed fixing the problems that were there. I enjoyed continuing to develop the business that was there. And that's when I truly learned what is the meaning of running a business. Whether you call it entrepreneurism, whether you call yourself a businessman, whatever it is that you call yourself, you owned everything. You own the profit, you own the loss, you own the good, you own the bad, you own the supplier. You pretty much were the center point of any decision that had to be taken. That's the second turning point in my life that I think is still foundational to the way I think. So when there is a problem that comes to me, whether I work for myself or work for somebody, if somebody comes to me with a problem or somebody comes to me with an opportunity, the thought process is around continued ownership. It's not about, okay, I take the decision, the buck is back to you. That never happens with that kind of an ecosystem that I had to own. So those were some foundational things that kind of shaped my thought process and my life. So a year and a half after doing that, even though I enjoyed doing it, that was my second decision point. One thing kept troubling me for 2 years. The biggest question in my mind was, should I do something about healthcare or not? One, I came from a middle class family, fairly affluent, fairly well connected. My mother knew every single doctor she had to in Chennai. Yet we couldn't do anything about my dad's sickness. And I knew for some reason something kept telling me I could have pursued medicine and I didn't. So I wanted to give something back to the healthcare world. And it was sort of, again, sheer coincidence that one day sitting at home on a Saturday morning, I read Hindu opportunity. It says Vikrams Medical Systems looking for people who knew French and fluid. I didn't even know Vikrams Medical Systems those days. So all I knew was, well, it had to be something with medical systems. So I applied. 2 months, I didn't hear anything from anybody. And 2 months later, I get an interview call. Went and attended the interview. That was an experience in itself, but back in the day. But and then the rest is history. I've been with the company ever since. Every new day uh, never goes by without me thinking about the fact how important that one decision was to stop doing what I was doing and start something new, to pivot away from everything that I was doing then. Because today, when I wake up, I know I'm happy because one, it's very close to what I do for a passion, not what I do for a living. My passion has always been to serve the underserved for healthcare. So 19 years, every day, not a day goes by when I go back home saying, I've done something better to make the world better. And I think sounds big when I say it, but it's very fulfilling. So if anybody is interested in a healthcare career, send me a note and we can have a conversation. Yeah. Let me stop there. We can go
Thank you, Vikram. Yeah. Uh, any follow-up questions on that topic? And before we move to his career in GE?
Yeah, I mean, the decision to close it happened one fine day. I didn't give it too much thought. So, again, for good or for bad, I am a fairly impulsive decision maker. So, sometimes it's helped me. Most cases it's helped me. Sometimes it hasn't. But what I've found for myself, and this is my own personal recipe, is if I wake up feeling tired of doing something, it's an indication to change. Something has to change. Either you have to change, job has to change, what you're doing has to change, your vision has to change, something has to change. That's what led me to that decision. So I decided overnight that, okay, I'm done with this, I need to do something different. I also decided overnight that that something different had to do with healthcare. I didn't, at that point, I didn't know whether I should work for somebody, do something on my own. But again, chance brought me into GE. But the decision to go into healthcare was mine. So that's what happened with that. That took close to 18 months to shut down because you have to deal with, forget suppliers and customers that you can deal with fairly easily. You can fulfill your orders and you're done. Beyond that, CST, VAT, excise, customs, that takes a long time. Even now we maintain records. So after 20 years. But in a way, I still haven't closed it. But yes, that's what happened.
So, moving to your chapter in GE, so you started as a design engineer. You worked in that space in technology. So, walk us through, the how you decided one day that you had a fulfilling career in technology, and then you moved to product management, customer focus kind of things. Uh, Tell us how that all happened. What was instrumental?
So my move into product leadership or product management was never planned. I never planned my career. So and I think it's difficult to plan one's career unless you're doing your own thing. So here's what happened. One, you've got to be lucky. Why? Because you need to work for good people. And why that becomes important is because people you work for play a massive role in shaping your career. I was fortunate to work for really good people early on in my career who were able to see certain things in me that I wouldn't have seen for myself, or I wouldn't have given credit to myself for having those skills. So in my first job, I was just designing oil pumps. An oil pump essentially just like any other, machine. An oil pump usually circulates oil. When it circulates oil, it cools. It helps in heat transfer. It cools the. It helps in thermal management. So I was designing oil pumps for an X-ray tube. An X-ray tube is a component that is. I mean, if you've ever gone for a medical check and got an X-ray done, or if you've taken a chest X-ray, the X-ray tube is the one that generates the X-rays, that creates the image, generates a lot of heat. So 2 weeks after joining the company, all of us, and we were the first engineering team for GE Healthcare that was put in place in India. We got sent to a place called Milwaukee in the US, saying, "Hey, you guys need to go get yourself oriented. Milwaukee is the base for X-ray tubes. Go get oriented." So we were there for 37 days. And the interesting thing was, while it was meant to be a technology orientation, it was good, but the one thing that I did was spent a lot of time understanding, talking to people about what are the challenges they face with respect to technology roadmaps for that component, so on and so forth, just learning more about their ecosystem. And it so happened that when we came back, of course, every company works with goals and objectives, right? You say, okay, for you, here are your goals and objectives and targets for the year. So I had mine, but beyond that, I told my MD at that time in the company that, look, I'll get this done, but apart from that, here's what I learned when I was there. Here are the two suppliers I met. Here's the opportunity I see to develop this vendor ecosystem in India. And if you did that, you can generate X million dollars of business. It had nothing to do with design engineering. It had nothing to do with mechanical engineering. It was just my own passion of wanting to go after a business opportunity. So thankfully, the person I worked for said, "Hey, looks like a great idea. Why don't you go down the details and tell me what are the risks associated with doing this?" So we did that exercise for a couple of months, and then he said, "Look, I'm convinced it's not a lot of money you're asking for. Go get it done." 6 months, we got it done. We generated X million dollars of business out of it. But that was my first attempt at building a business inside a small opportunity. It wasn't a big business. It was one opportunity, but it was good to walk me down the path of identifying the need, solving for the problem, putting that ecosystem in place, and generating income in the form of cash flows. Now that got other people in the ecosystem interested in what I was capable of. So that was the starting point for people to constantly give me opportunities to go build business roadmaps based on problems that existed. I think that's what helped me move eventually from being a technologist into a product manager. But I'll talk more about that as we talk about some of the other roles that I did in GE. That's a brief background.
I think this is a good opportunity for you guys to jump in and ask more probing questions on that topic. I'm sure you have some. So.
I was telling a smaller group that I was talking with outside that no holds barred, but whatever I say stays here. So.
Can you use the mic so it gets recorded?
Yeah, so I think the assignment that you were sent to do at Milwaukee, right? So you said that it was to do with design. You still ended up giving them a business case kind of a scenario. So how much was it to do with before you joined G, like the thing that you handled in terms of business? So how much that helped you here? Was it something, an inclination that came from there, or?
So I would definitely say there was an influence because I'm walking out of a business that I ran for 18 months suddenly into a new opportunity where I start seeing another business opportunity. Certainly it had influence. But here's what I've learned about myself over the years. I think to a large extent I'm empathetic. So I just love to listen. Right now you guys are asking me questions, so I'm talking a lot, but I love listening. I love asking. I love asking very open and vague questions. So whatever they say, I just want to be a sponge. Somebody said they'd love to be a sponge. I love being a sponge. And when you're a sponge, you attract a lot of things. You attract a lot of good things. You attract a lot of noise. It's up to you to figure out what's good, what's monetizable. I'm talking now purely from a business standpoint. And then what is noise and what needs to be left out. But I think that at that time I didn't realize it. Today I realize it. But at that time I think it was a little bit of innate capability to listen, but also a big tendency coming from my, recently closed business. So absolutely.
Any questions? So I'll dig deeper into that. So um, you're a technologist, then sort of a general manager kind of a role at one point. What are the things that you think you would have done specifically? Examples that people asked you to be a product manager, or you put it on your our famous GEMS system, saying I want to annual review system, or how did that work out? And did you said you didn't plan your career, but did you do you think, looking back now in retrospect, these are the specific skills and maybe the projects or the programs that I delivered on that helped me to get to the role that I have?
Yeah, no, certainly. With respect to product management, for sure. But I'll give you a very short 2 minute view of my entire career span, right? So, 2 years of designing X-ray tubes, and in the process of doing that, generating, we built two new manufacturing lines in India for X-ray tubes. We generated all this new business that we planned on. But interestingly, after doing all that, my next role was not a technology role. Neither was it a product role. So my manager who hired me into the company moved jobs. So he moved jobs. He took on a larger role, which was, I don't know how many of you heard of Six Sigma. It's a statistical process. He was at one time extremely famous for that. So he took on the Six Sigma Master Black Belt role for the entire technology operation in India. It was about 400 people. So he called me. He said, "Hey, I've enjoyed working with you. Will you come and do this for me?" I said, "I have no clue what Six Sigma is." And by that time, I was Six Sigma certified. But I still told him, "I have no clue what Six Sigma is. I don't know what you're expecting me to do, but I'm a technologist. I like doing what I'm doing. I'm building manufacturing lines. Leave me alone." He said, "No, try this out. If you don't like it, go back. Go back to doing your stuff. You're anyway good at it. You're well recognized. Good." So I said, "Fine, let's take a chance." So 2 years, I did a Six Sigma role where all I had to do was mentor the technology organization, 400 people working on different technologies. So when you look at medical domain, we broadly classify into 4 categories. Screening people. So I screen you for a disease. Like a blood test is like a screen. Second thing is diagnostics. So once I find something is wrong with you, I actually do a diagnosis of what is wrong with you. That's the second part. Third part is, once I find out what's exactly wrong with you, I treat you, therapy. Last part is monitoring. So once you've been treated, I monitor your progress, your recovery, so on and so forth. Interestingly, the 400 people in the company were spread across this entire spectrum. I think that was an interesting turning point in my career, because going from designing one oil pump, which is a one component of a large product, I now suddenly was in a job which had nothing to do with technology, but which gave me exposure to the entire range of products that GE Healthcare was developing. And I think that was monumental, because one, it showed me the possibilities of what I could do in the future. More importantly, it exposed me to multiple technologies. So I was a mechanical engineer by training. This exposed me to people who were software engineers, or, systems engineers, integration engineers, validation engineers, all kinds. So I started understanding in 2 years what were the challenges each one was facing. If I were to integrate a system, how would I do it differently? It taught me a lot about architecture. It was again another foundational change, and I had no intention of making that change for myself. If somebody saw what I could do, put me in that role. After that came another interesting thing. So the CTO at that point said, "Look, you're extremely good at managing all these multiple technologies from a mentoring standpoint. Why don't you take on a formal role as a manager?" And that was completely different. So I went from technologist to Six Sigma to engineering management, all within 4 years. And for me, it was hard to digest, because I went back and told the exact same lines that I told my previous person. "Hey, look, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Why are you changing my career?" "No, try it. If you like it, do it. If you don't, come back." I did it for 2 years, loved it, grew the team, developed business. So every opportunity in the company has come up only because somebody saw something that I could bring to the table to the organization's value building. Now, the change to product happened in my third role. So after spending 2 years in every job, I felt like I was a little bit of a jack in the box, moving around. But the fourth job that I did, I spent 7 years of my career in that one job. It was an interesting job. They gave me a team. I had total of 6 years experience. they gave me a team whose average experience was 15 years. Extremely, solid, grounded team, strong technologies. You name the technology you want. You want embedded, RTOS, GUI and mechanical, electrical. We were actually building what is called a vascular system. If you ever, or if any of your family members ever want to go through an angiogram, you will be going through a vascular system. So that's what we were building. An angiogram, by the way, is done when you have a block in the heart. So it took us 7 years to move from a point. The challenge that was given to me was the team's reputation globally is not good. They have not delivered for the last 6 years. See what you can do with it. So that, for the first 3 years, was just problem fixing. No new opportunity, no new business. We had enough problems to clean up, clean, get it to a point from, negative end of the scale to a positive end of the scale. But doing that taught me so much about the customer base, their user needs, the problems they had. And the best part was, India is the cardiac capital of the world. So for those of you who don't know, we generate 70 million new cardiac patients every year. We have 7,000 cardiologists. So there is no way you will bridge the gap between supply and demand for cardiologists. So we said, fine, that is a problem to solve for. And how can we solve for the problem? One small way of solving the problem is make the technology more accessible, so more cardiologists can afford to do more angiograms on cheaper devices, therefore serve more patients. So that was the first big product idea that I had worked on. There was absolutely no support in the system for me to do that. It took me 42 revisions of pitch making. It was like presenting to a shark. Every time you go, they'll ask a new question again. Sure, we'll go back. Another question. So 43rd revision, we got the money. It wasn't a large amount of money, small amount of money. We built the product. It took us about 12 months to build the product. In fact, my manager told me, you shall not focus on that. We still did it. And when we did that, then the business saw the opportunity. Wow, because that product did really well in India and it brought a lot of profitability. They said, fine, if you can do this for vascular, can you do it for GE healthcare portfolio? Sure, that'll be my dream job. So since then started my focus on emerging markets and the whole GE healthcare portfolio, which is what brought me to what I'm doing today. That's a entire career map.
Yes, Manjula.
So, you said
Records better.
I hear my own voice in that. So, one thing you said was having managers is extremely important because they really have a huge say in your career. And you also said that working for passion really gets the best out of people, right? So you don't work for anybody, you're working for your passion. And that's what keeps you awake at night and all of that. And I'm trying to connect these two dots to the fact that you worked in GE for 19 years. Now that makes me think one of two things. One, you had fascinating managers throughout the career of 19 years that you had.
Short answer to your question is yes, I did.
And they allowed you to follow your passion.
Too much freedom.
Right? Now for me, if that is true, then I think a lot of us should be really looking at GE as a potential.
Why do you think I'm here?
So rhetorically, I guess what I'm asking for is, obviously, I mean, all jokes aside, there would have been conflicts, there would have been challenges, there would have been, things that you wanted to do and the organization wanted to do something else, right? You would have had people to work for, in spite of all the amazing people that you worked for, I'm sure there have been people who would have been really a pain to work for. So a lot of things go really fine when things are all, nice and hunky-dory and everything's nice, but when things don't go right, that's when, the true character and best of you is brought out. So I just wanted to know, given that the 19 years of rich experience you've had, can you share some lessons of conflict management, of, areas where you had trouble, there are, differences in what you're trying to do?
Certainly, it's a fantastic question because it's a reality for almost everybody in every organization, right? But the only silver lining is you only remember the good ones you worked for. So I think that's great. But your question is valid. So not all my managers were the kind that I'm referring to. Here was my biggest problem face. First 6 years went really smooth because I was working for the same person for 4 years who just moved jobs, so he switched jobs. He pulled me into the different job. But then there was this CTO from France who actually pulled me into this bigger job of running this highly experienced team. In many ways, we actually call him the father of GE healthcare technology in India because some of us who are still in the organization owe a lot of our career to him in terms of his training and advice and mentoring and so on and so forth. So here's what he told me about middle management when he hired me for that so-called senior job 10 years ago. He said, look, you're entering a phase in your career in middle management where the only thing that will happen is, and this is literal French translation, so don't get me wrong, the only thing that will happen to a middle manager is people below you will spit on you, people above you will piss on you. I was thinking and he used to be a very old French guy, a little bit crazy, 65. This guy has gone crazy. Why is he giving me this lousy advice? But then, 3 months into the job, I knew exactly what he meant. So your manager doesn't support you, number one, because he is sitting there with a perception that that team in Bangalore is screwing up everything. Starts with that. You're already starting on a negative scale. People below you are so frustrated working for that person globally. Like, who's this new guy, so young? Why, what value is this guy going to add? So you just spent 3 months in flux, trying to understand, why am I here? Why did this person put me here? Can I do something better with my life? I've been a lot more productive. So all these questions creep up in your head. But the only thing that helped me is two things, in fact. One, the people you have around. See, unfortunately, it comes down to people, right? You need an ecosystem, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're inside an organization. You need a very small group of, whether you call it board of advisors, whether you call it your foundational group of people. You need 1 or 2 people that subscribe to your thought process, believe in you, are willing to work with you and support you. It took me about 6 months to find who those 2 people were inside my team. The second thing is, even globally in the ecosystem, you need to do the same thing. That's the first learning for me, and it took me 6 months to do that. But once that happened, all I had to do, and this was my second big learning, was keep my head down, not hope for the glories of the past, but just wake up every day, solve the challenge for that day, not even look into the next month, next quarter, next year. Here's what happened. First year, I don't know how much you know about the rating systems in GE, but 20 years ago, the rating systems in GE were brutal. If you didn't make the third cut, so you had number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Number 4, you were done. Number 3, you were barely there in the organization. I went from being number one for 6 years to number 3, year 1 in that new job. So you wake up to that reality and say, well, what did I do wrong? Somebody put me into this job. Somebody gave me this definition of growth. Somebody told me this is what's good for you. And that same person told me, if you don't like it, you can go do something else. Unfortunately, I like what I'm doing. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm learning from this. But the guy who's giving me this rating thinks I'm not worth it. That is an individual problem to solve. It's not the organization that can solve it for you. Very hard, but it takes a little bit of grit. That's where self-awareness is. For me personally, I think self-awareness goes a long way in terms of taking a decision of when to stop, when to continue. Whatever be the stuff that you're doing, whether it's continuing in your job, continuing in a relationship, whatever it is, I think you need self-awareness to know how right you think you are. I believed in that. The first year was a big dump for me. So I believed a lot in myself, saying, no, this is not worth it. I think we've made the right, we've got the right trajectory. There's enough evidence to show I'm doing the right thing. Let's take 1 more year. Okay, second year should have been better. No, again, I was number 3. Guys, something's got to give. Fourth year, finally things turned around. I said, it took us 3 years to change the. Finally, fourth year, I went from 3 to 2, which was a massive step, first step for mankind on moon. So it was like, oh, I could just breathe. Once I did that, the boost, I'm telling you, the confidence rush, the adrenaline rush that you get, man, I survived these 3 years. I did what I believed in, and now I don't care what the world thinks. I'm going to continue to do the same thing again. That's what gave me the confidence to do a lot of different things inside the company to change the system around me. Because I think it comes down to a little bit of confidence in yourself, that you can actually be the change that you want to be, and that's true. Takes time, takes a little bit of grit and resilience. If you have those three things working for you, you survive. If you don't, well, move on. Okay. What I'm talking about. Yeah.
Even more amazing, I think the Ajay and I can know like that. We were forward to
Well, I've lost my hair long time ago.
So we're going to switch topics and talk now about product management. So if there are any other questions on the, yeah, you and
Now that you've told so much about your managers, like I said, one time tempting to ask what zodiac sign were you born in?
Virgo. Virgo. Yeah, there's in fact a nice post on Facebook where Vin Diesel and Rock and all these guys are born in September, so I feel good. Okay. Everybody is bald, by the way.
So the question I was trying to ask is, apart from your direct managers or supervisors, so to do this kind of, to be able to tell someone that, hey, look, here is a business idea and this makes sense. I'm just wondering, in an organization as big as GE, and it will be true in other organizations, is it just enough if the manager backs you up? There needs to be a lot of other stakeholders who need to be convinced, right? So, how did you get that relationship going on with them?
No, I think it's a great question. And I don't think there's a silver bullet of an answer because I didn't approach it that way. While I keep saying there is one guy who supported me, there were of course a lot of people who had to agree when that person said, I think this guy will fit the job. It wasn't a one-person decision, never is a one-person decision. So, here is how I read it. Whether it's product management, whether it's technology, whether it's finance, whatever field you want to be in, I personally give a lot of importance to self-awareness. I think people who are self-aware are the most happiest people because they know what they're doing, they know why they are doing it, and they know what they hope to get out of doing what they're doing. And incredibly, self-awareness helps with product management in many ways, and I'll explain why later, but I think you need to start with the question why. It's a very, very difficult question to answer as with product management. Why are you solving that problem versus 10 other problems that you can solve for? It's the most fundamental question for product management. The same thing. Why do I want to do X? Is it because the society asked me to do it? My wife asked me to do it? My friends asked me to do it? Why do I want to do it? So I think that's the first question to answer. If you have a fairly decent, and you can never get a 10 out of 10 on that answer, right? Let's say you have a fairly good tendency score on that answer. Let's say you are fairly confident that this is why you're going to do it. I think then it makes decision making for you in terms of choosing who to work for, what to do, people around you, all that is a consequence. Okay, there is somebody like this guy who, okay, you called me for a reason. You called me because Yogesh said there's this guy who does product management for GE, who I think is a good person to interact with. So like that, when you know what you want to do, you become clear in your own mind saying, I need to talk to person X, I need to talk to person Y, and start understanding what the expectations are. It starts that way, especially when you're young in your career. The interesting thing is when you're young in your career, you also have the flexibility to really take risks. Right? You can never go wrong. I think one of the things that I see in the organization and among many youngsters today is very different from what it was when I was in the organization, where people were so scared of taking the next step. What will happen to my career? Will I, be able to continue to do what which is where I think the past changes that I had over a 6-year period doing 3 different things gave me the confidence that I can try multiple things, I can still figure out what I like and still go back to doing what I did. Today, I think it's a lot more relevant, lot more open. People are willing to try n number of things before they go dive deeper. That was not the case earlier. So coming back to your question in terms of relationships, people, sponsors, network, all these words start making sense only when you know what you want to do. So I would encourage you to start with, are you confident of what you want to achieve? Then you can start connecting the dots. That's what's worked for me in the past.
Sufficient.
First of all, thanks, RMS. Yeah, okay. So my question is, I see that you had success in technology, business, and maybe people manager as well, right? And I believe all these ingredients are important for the success story what you had, right? But which one is the most important or most critical you think out of that?
I think from a product management standpoint, the one that was pivotal for me was when I created that cath lab for the vascular system for India. That was pivotal because one, it told me that it wasn't easy to do it inside the organization, even though I was passionately pursuing it. Second, it taught me a lot about what are the challenges of going from idea to funding to implementation and then commercialization. So that entire cycle happened over about 24 months, and those 24 months were foundational for the product management role that I'm doing today. So specifically with respect to product management, that's what helped me.
And in the context of what you said in terms of you had to clean up a lot of things. Okay, so I'd be interested to know what are those, I mean, maybe the top three kind of things that you came across. And the other perspective was like, because I entered the industry around 2000, and I do remember that that's a time when there was an inflection point when a lot of global companies, multinational companies, actually started their R&D center, and I think the only exception was GE and Texas Instruments, if I remember.
Yeah.
They were like 15 years
Right.
ahead of others. Okay, so I think you've gone through that cycle. What I think maybe most companies are still going through, of the point where you actually started building products for India. Okay, so most of them are at the stage where we've been managing like doing it for someone else, and we haven't done it for ourselves. So in that context, and what are the things that you had to clean up? So I would say that that may make sense for a lot of us who are working in a lot of multinational
Certainly. So
companies.
the cleanup piece, especially with respect to that role, was more of functional management part of the job, which was fundamentally managing execution. So say-do ratios had to be improved. Secondly, communication between France and India, the teams, understanding, expectation setting, expectation management, that had to be improved. A lot of improvement was also required in terms of how do you manage scope. So interestingly, the team was a prolific team, extremely well-known team, because that was the first team that actually had full ownership for global product development. So we were not building a product for India then, we were building a global product, but we had the decision-making capability to say what scope, what's in, what's out, the entire framework was in our hands. And one of the problems we had was because we never dealt with that responsibility, we never used that responsibility. So that was the primary source of the problems that we had created for ourselves. So even though we had the responsibility, everybody is saying, you will deliver, you will deliver, you will deliver. We were never taking the empowerment that we had to actually take those decisions and deliver. Instead, we are always on the back of saying, are we right, are we right, are we right? So that becomes a doom loop. So when you go back to HQ and say, hey, are we right, are we right, are we right? They say, you guys are not capable, you guys are not capable, you guys are not capable. And then it's a downward spiral. So all those problems, when accumulated over time, it's a mess. So it took us about 3 years to get over that, but while solving for the problems, you've got to show that in execution. You've got to keep delivering, you've got to take the decisions, you've got to show that you're worthy of having that responsibility. So very, very tactical job on people management and functional management. That also helps from a product management standpoint. Why? Because if you look at product manager's job sounds cool from the outside. It's hardly that. You've got to manage everything from identifying what problem to solve for to fulfillment of your commercial realization. So many people's role definition of product management starts with, okay, let me define the spec of the product. You can define the spec, but the ultimate realization of success happens when the problem has been successfully solved, which happens only when there is commercial scale. So unless you own the whole 9 yards of idea to commercial scale, you'll never be able to be a successful product manager. So when you're going through problems like this, execution problems, expectation setting, scope setting, whatever be the problem, they are all applicable in different stages of product management. How do you go set the scope with marketing organization? Marketing will say your business case is 2 million, I've got another business case for 200 million. What if you're responsible only for a $2 million product? You still got to make it work. So managing those expectations, working through those different challenges, I think you can learn it from multiple places, but I think that's foundational. The second question with respect to ownership and delivery, things don't come easy. When we started 98, 99, we were nothing but a backup. I can tell you, we are a backup. So it pretty much used to be all the good guys. Hey, if there's this great guy in software, MR software, doing some cool stuff, send him to Milwaukee. L1 visa, 2 years, long term, H1, and he'll stay there and never come back. So it was a body shopping exercise. It took us about 3 years, and the reason why we call that CTO father of GLK technology in India is because he was a French guy. He came to India when he was 60, stayed on for 5 years. He was the first person who put his foot down to the global guys and said, you are not taking anybody from here. You want to work, work. That changed the way people interacted with, because they now knew that there was a gateway, that there was a filter. That's important. You need to have leadership like that to influence change. So those things help you in product management. So the reason why I said he left a foundational, building block for me in my career is today when I have to take a decision, I don't really care whether I have to talk to a global person, local person, somebody in marketing, somebody in sales. It doesn't matter. If the problem is real and the solution is real and the decision got to be taken, take the decision. That you're paid to do that. Take that decision. Make the people accountable for that decision. Make them own up. Then you will see whatever you want. If it's product ownership, you'll get product ownership. If it's commercial scale, you'll get commercial scale. You'll get whatever you want if you do your job. So that's my perception of my perspective for your question.
Just barrier for managers to manage the customer isn't called the right. So you get to a point where you learn how the learning curve is higher than.
Absolutely.
You have to make a decision to make that
So here's what I learned from Albus Dumbledore and Harry Potter. He said, you have in your life an opportunity to do what's right and what's easy. You decide. That's product management. I think that helps. Oh, a lot, yeah. In my job, a lot, because the markets that we serve are risky markets, very uncertain markets. We're not sitting in a developed world where the growth rate is a whopping 2%. We're sitting in a market where the growth rate goes from minus 40 to plus 200. So you need to be able to operate in those dynamics. So for us, decision making is very, very, very critical. And the good news is the company globally is also becoming more risk tolerant. So which means you now have the freedom to make the wrong decision. But in doing so, you just need to be cognizant of what risk you are taking. If the risk is too big, then you've made a bad decision, not the wrong. There's a difference between wrong decision and bad decision. Bad decision is just bad judgment. Wrong decisions is, I made the judgment call, I didn't expect a curveball at this time, so it went wrong. But let me pivot. I've not lost a lot of time, I've not lost a lot of money, I've not lost a lot of resources. I can still make a course correction and hit the final problem that I want for. So I think you have to get comfortable with taking those decisions. So that comes only with practice.
Actually, you told you made people own what you decided. So, how that process happens actually? How you influence people, and how make them own what you believe?
So in an organization, those are the times when you wake up in the morning saying, I must be running my own stuff. I'll be a lot faster, a lot easier. But there are enough pros and cons on both sides. So in the organization, given that the term matrix is used in all organizations, the problem is there are too many cooks, way too many cooks. You need to start with understanding who are those 2-3 people. If they say okay, the remaining 10 will follow. I think it starts with that. So you need to do your homework to understand who those influential stakeholders are. That's the first step, very, very basic. And the second thing that helps in terms of accountability is setting a shared vision. It sounds very cliched and basic when I say it, but unfortunately that's what it is. If the entire business is pouring in its resources in the form of money, time, whatnot, I think everybody in the organization who's paid by the organization is accountable to deliver what the organization wants. I think it's good to always remind people, especially for key conversations, just put what that vision is of the shared vision or the shared purpose that you have every time in the front. Okay, if this is what I want, put that on top and start the meeting with that background mind. The reason why we're all here is this. This is how much progress we've made. And here is why, and be very open in saying here is why we didn't make progress. Many people tell me, even today, I can tell you in my organization, people don't like to confront. People don't like to confront. It's not that I hate people. It's just that, well, I'm just uncomfortable. What if this guy, reacts strongly against me? That fear always exists. I think as a product manager, more so for a product manager, you should be fear-free when it comes to constructive confrontation. Very important in an organization. Because you need to be able to tell people, hey, this is why I believe it doesn't work. And don't just say, no, this idea sucks. Say, this idea doesn't work or it sucks because of 3, 4, 5, 6 reasons. And here is what makes me believe that those reasons are right. If you provide and articulate a good debate, then it becomes a meaningful conversation. They take value from it, you take value from it, and both of you agree, saying that fine, we will now go down this path. I think that constructive confrontation goes a long way in sorting out accountability. These are some basic things that I would do if I were in your position.
Taking a lot of risks, or it's like, because the fear that you said is something that's very common. Okay, be it me or be it my manager who has to take some really big decisions, and
Correct.
Because we are the gateway for them to understand what's happening in India. Okay, so whatever we say is like the final word. So they're going to make the decision on that. Okay, so that becomes like, it's very difficult because we don't know how they think, because I work with a Japanese company. Okay, so it's that much more difficult.
Sure.
So what is their thinking when it comes like a situation in India? Okay, where there are only few people who are taking the call, sitting there. Okay, how do they see it from their side?
It is a journey. The reason why I say it's a journey is because let's say you're starting fresh from scratch, working with somebody you did not know. You're in your role, they're in their role, you need to work with them. You have no prior knowledge, so no baggage and no perception of who you are, who they are. Right. Except that they know that you're the guy, you know that they are the person. I think it starts with benefit of doubt, especially if you are in a decision-making role. You cannot assume that this person has to be taught, doesn't know anything, and I am going to teach. Doesn't work. Same thing applies to you. If they start with that attitude, you will be the first one to put a defense against that, saying, I don't want to work with this guy. You start with some benefit of doubt. See what value they bring to the table. Post, and that's why it's very important to ask those open and vague questions, because it gives answers to you in terms of their thought process. It gives you answers in terms of their expectations. Do all this and then figure out a way to build a relationship. See, nobody comes to work in the morning saying, I'm going to screw this person. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody is coming to work saying, let me do my job. It's just that the lenses are very different. Sometimes, not everything is obvious. What's obvious to you may not be obvious to them. So I think it's always good to have those open dialogues. If you start from there, usually relationships get better and better. I'll give you an interesting story. So in this place where I spent 7 years of my career, my first global call was within first month of joining the team. It was a program review, big program review with business GM, CEO of that business, everybody was there. And at that time, I was a really young guy in the organization. I had no clue about the hierarchy above me. In terms, I didn't know any of the people. It very interesting story because I was presenting some data on behalf of the team, and the guy who was running the program on the other end said, "I don't trust you." I just said, "Hey, look, I don't like the tone of his dialogue," and I disconnected the call. So sort of, I said, I'm an impulsive decision maker, right? So I disconnected the call. It seemed like the right thing to do. 2 minutes later, my manager from France called me. Why did you disconnect the call? We got the GM, the CEO. I said, look, this is not the conversation to have among 30 people. The guy doesn't trust me, he has to tell me he doesn't trust me one-on-one, and we'll sort it out. So I told my manager, you please ask this person to give me a call and we'll chat. I have no issues with it. That's what happened. But to do that, you need to know that there is somebody who's holding an umbrella above. Don't just do it rashly. Sounds nice when I say the story. It's never that. So in my case, I had this French guy who said, look, I'm putting you there. You are my guy. You will do what I say. So I knew if there was a problem, I'll just tell him, boss, this is what is happening. Can you manage? Then French will speak and get sorted. You've got to take those bits. And then once you start doing that, as you mature in the organization, you have your own network. That also helps. But that was again very foundational for me, that disconnection of the call. Very important.
And I mean, there was no reception of that particular idea, and you totally believed in it, but you started working under the hood without showing to anyone that you're working on it, or some people working on it. And once the product or prototype is out, you show the value and then try to convince. So is there any story around the same?
Sure. I mean, that's my life over the last 6 years. So the interesting thing is, even though we have a business which is built around emerging markets, the total contribution that we make as a business to the global GE healthcare portfolio is about 10%. 7 to 10%. Extremely small, so not critical margin. Once we get to 25, 30, then I don't need to pitch to anybody. So the point is to get to that 25, 30. But here's the journey, right? We went from 0 to 7% over the last 7 years. And that's happened because a few of them believed in what we did. So you need to know that if you're in a startup environment, so to speak, inside an organization, there is equal amount of failures waiting for you as successes, except that the successes that you have are the ones that you should build on. The failures you'll learn from. So in my 6 years, the ratio of failures to successes, I would say, is about 80-20. 80 failures, 20 successes. But the ones that have succeeded are massive successes. So that's what gives us that's our battery bank. So we draw on that every time somebody shoots us down, saying it's like having a life on a game. So okay, we'll pitch, somebody shoots us down, draw on your reserve, go back, pitch again, keep moving. So that's one. Skunkworks, well, my view of Skunkworks is it won't scale unless it's organized inside an organization. You can do it. It's fun, it's pleasurable. I've hardly found it scale. You can show value, yes, but if it's a big business opportunity you want to build out, you need a little bit more than Skunkworks. But don't stop from doing that. Maybe it will work for you. It didn't work for me. And we don't do stuff under the radar, not because we don't want to do it, but we do stuff outside the global radar, but on a small scale, but funded by the organization. Not on reserve time, not on extra time, not on stretch time, whatever words we use, don't do that. Get the organization to, even if it's $1, that organization has to put that money. That's the value in doing that. Then you can go back and say, for the $10 you put, here's your output. Imagine if you put $1 million into it. Here's what I can give you. That's a different story. You don't work for free.
So I just want to add a personal story, and I obviously can't share everything in technical details, but what Vikram just said, actually he helped us do that. And I think you remember the project last year we worked on, we'll not talk about it, be assured, but we were going to do the skunk works, right? And Vikram was there saying, no, healthcare will fund it and then you will do it. And we did what we did with his funding and his support. And I was not going to bring it up, but since he mentioned skunk works and his sort of, I had not had this conversation with him before. So to be honest, in corporate R&D, we do a lot of skunk work because business never wants to fund these things. They are far, but it was a pleasant surprise, and Vikram said he will fund it. And actually, his say-do ratio on that has been 1 for us now. So that's great. So I thought, really wanted to share what you asked. So
It's simple, it's just like a startup. If you go and pitch to a VC or a seed investor and they don't give you money, it means they don't believe in your idea. Simple. Even if they gave you like 10,000 rupees, it's great validation of your idea, which is why the organization needs to invest even if it's something.
So, not changing the topic, but I think going a little bit deeper, right? Rahul and Pinkesh founded this institute and called it product leadership and not product management. So, there is a subtle difference in that and maybe a substantial difference. And in your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned one of your key strengths as leadership by influence. So, I know we touched upon some of those aspects, but, you know, bring it out to us as to what are specific things that you think these growing, emerging product managers / leaders need to do beyond the domain knowledge and some of the product related stuff, right? So leadership by influence is more emotional intelligence kind of.
Right. So, I think leadership by influence, when I wrote it in my profile, I think a couple of years ago, I was working on different things. My frame of mind was different. I said leadership by influence. That goes back to your question of how much do I have to influence people to get my work done. So, but I'll explain my perspective for leadership by influence. I believe that even the CEO, if you're in an organization, even the CEO of the organization does not have any influence over what a person on the ground is doing. Zero. Think about it. In GE, we have 350,000 people. We have our chairman and CEO, Jeff Immelt, sitting in Boston. He says something, share price goes up, goes down, those kind of things happen. To the guy on the street who's selling an ECG device, what does he care about? Where is my variable incentive? How much am I going to do? He doesn't care about share price. I think that is the founding notion of leadership by influence. So, what you need to realize is you don't have control over everything. I think it's a utopian world to think you have control over everything. Whether you're in a startup, whether you're the co-founder, founder, you don't have control over everything. There are things you have control over, there are things that you have to influence, and there are things which will influence you, things that you never saw coming. I think you need to keep all these three things in context when making a decision. So leadership by influence, in my case, has helped me two ways. One, it has helped me positively because influence also comes from relationships. Influence also comes from empathy, and I told you I am fundamentally empathetic. So if you are willing to lend a ear to somebody, say, hey, is there something I can help you with? When you start with that question, it creates a very, very, very different interaction. When you go to somebody and say, hey, XYZ, I've got this problem, can you please help me? These two guys in your team are not doing what I asked them to do. My team is not talking to your team because your team didn't do that. When you go with, you, and on my side, please do this for me. It doesn't. So when you say leadership by influence, it has a lot to do with empathy. It has a lot to do with asking the question, what can I do for you? That's the first step of influence. Can you influence a positive outcome for the other guy, for the other person? You can do that. Trust me, you will get something back. Always. Like 100 out of 100, I can say everybody that I've done something for has given something back to me. Second thing, the most important with respect to leadership by influence, please realize that as a product manager, this is a very, very product management centric answer. Product manager the only thing that you truly own is the problem. That's the call you make. You make the call on what problem to solve for. Everything else somebody is doing. The solution is built by some engineering team. Money is coming from some funding stream. Commercial scalability, commercial team. Marketing, branding, mindshare, marketing. Manufacturing, supply chain. You've got all these other things, the entire internal ecosystem that you need to work with, which you don't control. And even if you did, let's say you're the CEO, anyway, nobody listens. So please realize that the reality of the system is such that as long as you've chosen the right problem, your only job is to make sure other people subscribe to the same problem. If you agree on that, I think leadership by influence matters a lot there. So that's my 2 cents on my perspective.
Any question on that before we change direction and talk specifically a little bit about healthcare? So, 20 years in healthcare business. So, tell us a little bit about creating product offerings for the countries like India, China, Africa.
So, my first experience of creating a product for India was exactly what he asked about Skunk Works. And this was in 2003. The same French guy told me X-ray is a big market in India. So just so that you know, X-ray is the first diagnostic test anybody does, especially for chest congestion, tuberculosis, liver cancer, all these things. And because in our country all these things are high, you have pollution, respiratory problems, X-ray exams are very, very, very common. In India, we have 60,000 X-ray machines installed in the country today, as on date. So, and I think that number can be at least 3 times higher if we enabled the right kind of technology solution. So, back in the day, 2003, this guy called me and he said, I think, Vikram, apart from what you're doing, go build this X-ray product. It had nothing, it was just out of the blue. He said, build an X-ray product. Okay, sure. I knew what an X-ray tube was. I knew what an X-ray system was. So, the way it started was myself, another manager like me, and a few other people from both of our teams whom we thought were very good systems engineers. No product managers, 0 product managers. The challenge was go build the product. Nobody even told what problem we were solving. So that was my first tryst with product management. Within 3 months, we actually had a brand new X-ray system that was cobbled together with components that we had at a cost price that was ridiculously low. So, of course, the conversation started with the global guys. Hey, do you know what? We've been working on this solution. We've got a really cheap X-ray system. Global guys, of course, first reaction, what? Who asked you to work on it? We'll deal with that later. Why don't you just take a look at the solution? So, 2 global guys come down. They take a look at the solution. After 2 days, the answer was clear. Bunch of immature guys built an immature product with 20,000 problems. There is no way we'll release it in the market. Okay. So what did I have to do? I had to take that news, go to this French guy and tell him, somebody told me that I am an immature person and we built this immature product as an organization and we wasted their time. So I told him that and he said, okay. So he spoke to those guys and he said, look, give us 3 more months and we'll figure out how to productize. So we launched it. 3 more months later, he actually spent time with us, coaching us, again, not on product management, on how to take a product that is cobbled together into a product that can actually be commercial. And healthcare is a regulated industry because you're dealing with human lives. You can't just put a piece of junk into the market. You have to really make sure that the product is reliable, repeatable, so on and so forth. Put that in the market after 3 months. So the assumption was if it's ridiculously cheap, we'll sell in thousands. I think 20 in the first year. And I told you, we have 60,000 machines in the market today. Imagine how many you should be selling if you want to take share. So we sold 20. Total disaster. Great success in terms of building a product at that cost. So the biggest learning was we could build products. We could make it at a cost that was unachievable in the rest of GE, and we could do it at a speed that nobody in GE could do it at. 3 wonderful learnings and a massive failure that we had no clue what product management was, including my French boss. All of us had no clue what product management was. Because my friend's boss was a technologist. He was a technologist for 45 years. He knew how to get things done on technology side. Now, the second example I'll give you, my first twist with product management. Second example, we built a product, so based on that exercise, he in fact pushed other teams. Like me, he went to another guy and he said, hey, work with Vikram. Vikram's gone through this exercise. Yeah, go ahead. What was the reason it didn't work? Because we didn't know what value prop to sell it for, other than cost. Very simple. The answers to these questions are usually simple. We didn't have the value prop. Simple. So we went to market. The channel was not set. The channel was not prepared to sell the product. They did not know how to position the product. Then there was this question of, should we dilute the GE brand by selling into this segment? So did you understand the customer segment? What problems with? Like, guys, it's cheap. Why don't you just sell it? No. Fine. So typical product management discussion, right? So the next product was X-ray. I'm sorry, ECG. Again, another very simple product. By the way, so those of you who've read about GE's reverse innovation, the article written by Jeff Melt and Vijay Govindarajan, who at that time was our Chief Innovation Officer. VG, for those of you who don't know him, is an eminent professor of innovation at Duke, at Tufts School of Business. You should read up some of his stuff. They coined this term reverse innovation based on that product. So massive poster child for GE in terms of creating products for emerging markets. It's called the MAC 400, MAC 400, that's what it's called. This time we did product management. So we went out into the field, and I remember going into the rural parts of, rural hinterlands of India. I think close to 6 months we actually spent in village clinics, watching people come in, just observing what they do, all the usual product management stuff that they teach about. And we had a fantastic product definition. And I had a colleague of mine, his name is Oswin Varghese. At some point you should invite him over as well. He has a lot of good stories to tell. So Oswin and we fundamentally had a definition for a product that would revolutionize ECGs in rural markets, which would cut down cost from 200 rupees an ECG to less than 30 rupees an ECG. Massive cost out and fantastic technologies. The battery on a single charge would last for 500 ECGs, which means it would last for 8 days. So as you can see, I'm beginning to tell you what the value props are. This is how you would position the product in the market. We did all that. We said there are 700. So the idea was, as I said, 70 million cardiac patients, 7,000 cardiologists. So we can't sell to a cardiologist, but we want to sell to 700,000 general physicians. So if they given an ECG, those GPs can actually assess whether you have a risk and then promote you to care. So out of 700,000, business case. This is how you make business case, right? Excel file, do some numbers, 5% share, 3% share, 10% share. So we said, we'll be happy with 5% share out of 700,000. That's 35,000 people. Sure, 35,000 machines we'll sell. You know how many we sold in the first year? 400. In a potential market of 700,000. That's your entitlement. Out of 700,000, other people are also selling, but we should have at least sold 2,000, 3,000. Something to, make us feel better. We sold 400. That was the second learning. 400. Second learning was, even if you get product definition right, you need to really define your go-to-market. If you don't define your go-to-market will be unable to, one, synthesize your value prop, second, translate the value prop at the point of sale. Your cost of sales is too high, because for such a low cost product, our GE cost of sales was so high, our overheads were very high. There's no way that succeeds. And because it didn't work for the first 6 months, we made the classic product definition mistake. We said, not working. Great product. But we had this crown jewel feature in it. It's called interpretation. Where does that help? It helps an untrained physician who is reading an ECG to take an informed call. So interpretation basically says, if this is your ECG signal, there is a problem for this patient. Simple. It helps you. It's a user guidance system. We said it's crown jewel feature, GEIP. Anyway, we are selling only 400. Why should we give this to the bottom of the pyramid? Take it out. We took it out and the sales went from 400 to 0. Classic mistake was, the guys who needed interpretation were actually those GPs. We said we will put that crown jewel feature only in our high-end system, which we were selling to cardiologists, who didn't care about that interpretation. So the second lesson, this was again, these are all gems in terms of product management learnings, because once you get this level of experience early on, then when you get into defining products after product after product after product, you make sure that these things are fixed right up front. And these are easy to fix things. None of them are complex. Once fixed, they reduce your uncertainty. When not fixed, your uncertainty goes haywire. So those were some foundational things with respect to product management. And after this, there were several products that we built that helped us succeed really well. But I thought it'd be better to share these failures.
Thanks, Vikram. So we'll go a little bit broader on healthcare here. So one of the questions from the cohort here is, given the way Indian healthcare system is and the government spend is so low, 1.3 of GDP, can you talk specifically about that aspect, the I guess payment for healthcare services, and how you, as a product manager for high-end, expensive products.
Sure. So let me explain healthcare very simply. And for those of you who think the Indian healthcare system is broken, I don't think there's any healthcare system in the world that's not broken today. US spends 17% of its GDP in healthcare. Huge, multi-trillion-dollar economy. $275 trillion is what they spend on healthcare. India spends $100 billion on healthcare. Oh, it's still a lot of money. Okay, this is overall healthcare spent for India. But interesting, India is the only market where the exact same device and the exact same clinical procedure will be performed with equally good clinical outcomes at 1/10 or 1/20th of the cost. And yet people continue to deliver that service, even though they are doing it at 1/10 of the cost or 1/20th of the cost, as you see in the US. How is that possible? So if you listen to Dr. Devi Shetty from Narayana speak about his model for affordable cardiac care, he says, I can do a bypass at $800, where in the US it will cost you $200,000. How does that model work? The simple thing is volumes. So we do 10 to 20 times more volumes on any procedure as opposed to the US. And I'm considering two extremes. I'm considering India versus US. Now, the second question. So keep that in mind. That's one perspective about healthcare and why India is able to sustain such low cost healthcare. Second, cultural. How many of you, when you develop a fever, cough, flu, how many of you go to a doctor first? Honest, be honest. How many of you go to a doctor? Oh, I have fever. Let me go to a doctor. Not so cold. Good. Where do you go normally? No, let's say you don't go to a doctor. Where do you go? What do you do? Pharma, home remedies, grandmother, kashayam, all those things. So, here's what is culturally different in India. It is never diagnose and treat. It's treat and then diagnose. Even if you go to a doctor, what will they tell you? They will never prescribe 10 tests. They will say, first take this tablet. Especially, I'm talking about common illnesses. Take this tablet, antibiotic, one vitamin C or something to combat that. 5-day course, come back to me after 5 days. That's the usual answer. After 5 days or after 3 days, if you feel worse, you'll be like, shit, medicine is not working. Let me go back. You'll go. Then he'll say, go to the blood test. Get me one report. You could have told me 3 days ago. No. Go to the blood test. Go do the blood test and come. Now take these 3 tablets. So it is very iterative. We talk about product management being iterative. Medicine is iterative. But it's iterative for a reason. Why? Think about it. You want patient catchment. So I want you to come back. You come back. And it's not a bad thing. Because if I cure you at 5 rupees a tablet, you are happy with me, you will still come back. So there's nothing good or bad about the way medicine is practiced in India. My mom is a doc and I'm speaking freely about it because this is the reality you got to face. They are not doing it to please you. They are not doing this to make you sick. That's the ingrained cultural relevance of the way medicine is practiced in India. Okay. Now, you put the question, you keep the two things in mind. One, we deliver care at 1/10 the cost. Second, we have an iterative way of treating people. I actually think that's a fantastic innovation model in itself. If you can only guarantee the right clinical outcome, if you can tweak this model to say, how can I be more predictive? In this case, tablet should work. In this case, I should get a test done first. Maybe I will drive better outcomes at a lower cost. It's a very, very different thought process. But I believe India can actually be the base for revolutionizing healthcare in the world. Okay. Second, the Indian government, yes, spends only 1% of its GDP as opposed to 17% in the US. A majority of the healthcare spend out of that 100 billion happens out of pocket, which means people like you and me, private economy, private equity, they are the people putting money into healthcare services. What that does is it drives entrepreneurial thought process. So whether you are a clinician, whether you are a hospital administrator, whether you are the CXO, you will always think cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And therefore, at every point in the healthcare economy, you will be optimizing services, which is what makes you profitable at 1/10 the cost. So all these are connected dots. So Modi has announced that he is now going to increase healthcare spend from 1% to 2%. That's huge. Imagine the amount of new infrastructure he will enable just by doubling the government investment, even though it's low. Because doubling government investment means private equity can do that much more. So it's an ever evolving market, it's a very complex market, and it's a market where the demand is always going to be more than supply. So again, I think it's a fantastic field to be in if you really want to try out new things.
Good, thank you. Now, a lot of us are in the field of IoT and, but not in healthcare. I don't think anybody here is working in the healthcare IoT. But so, from your perspective, how do you see the issues of data privacy and security, and how IoT is revolutionizing healthcare, especially in India, or will revolutionize healthcare?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question, and I believe IoT, data, and the overall digital piece has a massive impact on the future for healthcare in any emerging market, not just India. You're trying to go from where nothing exists to trying to create access to all. So when you look at India, less than 200 million people in India out of the 1.1 billion that we are actually have access to good quality of care. Forget the quacks and forget all the other practitioners. Good quality of care, 200 million people have access to that care. If you go to parts of Africa, these are markets that we travel to often. Africa, by the way, has 54 countries. Of the 54, we serve 9 countries. We are not even present in the remaining. So the question is, as it is, there are no people selling solutions in some of these countries. Imagine the status of healthcare there. So the point for us is digital is a way of inclusion. It's just like how digital drove transformation for financial inclusion. That's the way I see healthcare. Healthcare and financing are extremely fundamental topics. So outside of water, electricity and roads, the two things that are very foundational are financing and healthcare. Financial inclusion has come a long way over the last 2 decades. Healthcare hasn't moved. So when you talk about healthcare from a large spectrum standpoint, digital will be an inclusion driver for healthcare. Once people get included in the healthcare workflow, then you can talk about delivering care. And for that, people talk about AI and deep learning and AR and VR for healthcare. All that is great, but they will remain toys if you don't include healthcare in the clinical workflow. You got to bring people into the clinical workflow. If you don't do that, technology will not help. But that's where I see digital playing a role in inclusion. That's my view.
Any thoughts on or anything that you're working on that directly relates to data privacy and security kind of thing?
Oh, tons of stuff. Data privacy, data security. By the way, I didn't answer that question, right? So yeah, cyber security is extremely big for us in healthcare because patient data is sacrosanct. The only person who owns patient data is the patient. No one else. No one else has rights to that data. And today, in the world of the current digital era that we live in, I mean, your life can go for a toss at the flick of a switch. So we've run experiments, for example, in our world, in a X-ray, CT, MR, while a patient is being scanned, I can hack into the system and screw up a scan. So instead of saying you've got a problem with your liver, I'll say you've got a problem with your brain. Imagine what it does to the patient. It's difficult to think of scenarios like that, but it's possible. We've run actual experiments where you can hack into medical technologies and basically spoil the life of somebody. That's one extreme. On the other hand, data, just patient data in terms of their history, the evolution of diseases, etc., is highly private in nature. Imagine what you can do with that data, especially when it comes to careers, when it comes to the future of a family, insurance, whatnot. There's a ton of things you can do there. So data theft with respect to healthcare and cyber security in general are extremely potent and realistic use cases. We invest heavily on cyber security norms, not just for emerging markets, but globally, for healthcare as a domain. And the last thing with respect to cyber security is, I think it's a game where it's constantly evolving. Every time you put the next best firewall in place, there's always somebody who hacks it up. So I think in fact, a lot of things have changed for us over the last 3 years. I think the number of hackers we've actually formally hired is possibly in years. We've never thought about hacking as a job responsibility, but it is a proper job responsibility even in healthcare. So hard to imagine, but extremely important.
So I think you have to leave at 4:30, right?
Yes.
So there are a couple more questions, and then we'll end the formal session, and some of the people can interact with you in a more informal basis. So two things that are on people's mind. One is your 5.8 startup within GE. Very exciting to see somebody who has been in GE 19 years talking about startup, and then we'll talk about product management in GE as a career. So those are the two. So let's start with your startup experience.
Yeah, so startups my favorite topic. One, because I know at some point I'll go do one. Second, I think the field is so vibrant today. There's a lot you can do. So every time you talk about startups, at least in India, the connotation is immediately e-commerce, retail, food tech. Now, of late, some AI and VR, stuff like that. So with respect to healthcare, the startup ecosystem in India is fairly nascent, it's nebulous. Globally, when you look at healthcare startups, there are very, very few unicorns that you'll find. There are very few companies that have actually hit $1 billion on valuation. And healthcare startups are usually single point intervention. What I mean by that, it's one device that they've innovated on, they create a startup around it and they try to grow. So when I was thinking about solutions and products for emerging markets, so we always had two thought processes. We can do as much as we can organically inside GE, invest and continue to build products, but we can do that much more, n times more, if we looked at the ecosystem of who's in the spaces that we want to be and partner with these guys to help them build their product and solution. Ultimately, it will ride on the GE platform. So that was the original idea. So before we got into setting up 5.8, one of the questions I asked myself is, if I were doing a startup in the healthcare world, what were some of my biggest challenges? Especially because you don't see unicorns in the startup world for healthcare. So the answers were not about, okay, I need mentoring, I need, business backup, I need, people to teach me how to put an execution roadmap in place, nothing, none of the stuff. Not a typical accelerator incubator setup. What they lacked big time, and what they still lack, is commercial scale. It's very easy to go from 0 to 10. It's a little bit easy to go from 10 to 30. But getting 30 and above in terms of adoption curves for healthcare products, very, very, very extremely tough. One, because you're playing in a regulated space. Second, you're dealing with clinicians who are extremely few in number, right? So 7,000 to 70 million. Remember that ratio. So whenever you talk to a clinician, they are also people, if they are your ultimate customers, they are people who are sitting with, very strong mental blocks in terms of how to adopt a product line. mental blocks in terms of brands, mental blocks in terms of what a GE can provide versus what a startup can provide. So we decided that for startups to scale, the biggest thing that we can add as a company in terms of value is commercial scale. So when we set up 5.8, 5.8 is actually not a typical accelerator. 5.8 is an ecosystem builder. What it does is it partners with startups with the intention of giving them commercial scale through GE's distribution arm. It is a platform that partners with NGOs, because in this market, emerging markets, it's NGOs that are the primary vehicle of care delivery. They are the ones who utilize the startup technologies to deliver care working with governments. So we onboard NGOs as our formal partners. So in that process, we end up building an ecosystem that is financially scalable and commercially viable. So that's the concept of 5.8. It is, we think, of course, revolutionary, but time will tell whether it's really revolutionary. But I think it's the first one that exists in the market today, globally, across any company for healthcare. So right now we have 7 startups that we've onboarded. These companies come from India, Philippines, Haifa in Israel. So there's a few companies from around the world that are on our platform. But I think give us a couple of years, and then if we show commercial scale, then I think we would have proven a point. Then we'll see the ramp up. That's where we are.
And what is your role in that? Because it's somewhat not very clear on the.
So my role is it's my baby. It's my baby. It's my platform. And when I say it's mine, I have personal accountability to its success and failure. If it fails, I'll take full responsibility. If it succeeds, there's a bunch of people with me who will also succeed. So that's it.
But I think it is more like
More than anything else.
Yeah, so we called it accelerator because we wanted mind share, but it's not an accelerator. It is a public health acceleration platform. So if I want to accelerate public health for a community, if I want to say I want to improve infant mortality for Chennai Metro, then you build an ecosystem that can actually provide large-scale commercial delivery that will drive an outcome for large-scale populations. That's what it does. Very different from a normal. The reason why we didn't want to put a normal accelerator in place, today there's too much money floating around. So we don't want to just give money to a startup to say, here's my equity, go do your stuff. What we wanted was a vested stake. So strategic partnership to say, you do well because of me, then I have rights to some equity. If I take equity, then your success is my success. So it's a shared value ecosystem. That's what we call it.
Another question, partly unrelated, but you're saying that there's a lot of issues that we have, right?
Yep.
So G is into healthcare with a lot of stuff. So is there anything that you're doing on like preventive healthcare? I mean, why don't you address the source of the?
No, I think preventive healthcare, I think, is the future for sure. The more you prevent, the lesser you spend after, which is good. G has certain core competencies today that we are focusing on. Our core competencies are all around the acute care side, which means once you are ill, we have solutions to take care of you.
Right.
And we have 4 very focused areas for us. One is maternal and child health, so lives of mothers and babies. Cardiovascular care, oncology, which is cancer. And the last one is surgery, to drive creation of new infrastructure for surgery and then better outcomes from a surgery. These are the 4 areas that we focus on. Should we focus on preventive? Sometime in the future, yes. Should we focus on geriatric care, home care, for example, for the aged? Sometime in the future, yes.
So there isn't anything planned as such for preventive healthcare right now?
Not today. Not today. Not from G. We'd like to partner.
Okay, thank you.
It's about choosing your bets. It's just that today we're not ready to make that bet.
Okay.
For example, if you put scenario, just yesterday we talked about distribution of our supply, and part of company will develop a sensor which will power through a medication, and it goes in your body for 4 hours, and then you have to batch it, and which will calculate the efficacy of it, and you are taking it on time. So anything of this like.
No, so we don't make drugs. We don't do implantables. So as a company, our risk profile is also very different. So we deal with non-invasive technologies to a large extent. There is only one invasive equipment that we have, which is a surgical C-arm, but other than that, everything else is non-invasive. Secondly, with respect to pharma, where we invest heavily is life sciences. So equipment that helps pharma companies make the drug discovery, batch production, full scale up. All that equipment is what we build. So we invest heavily on what we now call a flex factory. So for example, in Africa, where you don't have access to medicines, if you want to set up literally a factory overnight, you can pretty much set it up. That IP, that whole technology is owned by GE. So things like that we build. The capital expense oriented items that are required to produce drugs is what GE focuses on. So that's a big investment for sure.
Two-part question, maybe around competition.
Okay.
First part is you mentioned about oncology. When you talk about are you planning to do anything similar to what Watson is doing with respect to oncology advisors or the Moritz team that you have where you're able to actually do PXLAs? That is one part. The other part specifically to India, what are you doing to deal with competition from Siemens?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have.
Sure.
Siemens is sort of bigger.
Siemens, Philips, all of them are there. Very active market. So, so with respect to Watson, I'll answer the question first. The short answer to your question is yes. We call it the Health Cloud, and it's released in the US. It does stuff that's extremely similar to Watson. In fact, a lot more efficaciously, purely from an acute care standpoint, because we've been closer to patients for a long time. That's where all the data comes from. So the Health Cloud is highly clinically focused, not as much on semantic algorithms as Watson is today. Okay, so I will leave the answer there. The second part of your question, in India, and not just in India, globally, Philips and Siemens are our biggest competitors. India, there's a lot of action from all the global companies. In fact, Philips has massive investments in India around similar things, emerging markets, innovation, so on and so forth. But I believe imitation is the best form of flattery. So I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Let me leave the answer there.
I got it.
So here, so you're playing actually two very important roles. So, being the co-founder of 58 and then chief product officer. So how are you able to divide your time? And you think you are able to do justice to both the roles which you are playing? And going forward, what would you like to do?
Short answer is no. I'm not doing justice to both the roles because I would love to spend more time on 5.8 because that's closer to my dream job. On the other hand, I have realities of a yearly OP number that I have to meet, which keeps me on the field for a long time, which I also enjoy. But the short answer to your question is very difficult to balance the two. My ideal scenario would have been, let me hire a maverick guy who can run 5.8 and give him the full reign of control. And we did find that maverick, and we did make an offer. And then my business came back to me as usual and said, first prove it, then we'll give you the money. So right now I'm in the prove out mode. So maybe by the end of the year we'll get what it takes to get somebody to run it full time. But until then it's gonna be me stressing it.
You won't be pursuing the other side. You would pursue the chief product officer role.
I would love to, I'd love to continue to do that because there's still a huge opportunity. We're literally scratching the tip of the iceberg on the product side. So the way I see it, this complements the chief product officer role. So without the 5.8 ecosystem, it does not matter. So here's the other thing about healthcare, right? I can build 10,000 more products. I will never be able to touch the 5.8 billion lives that I want to touch who don't have access to care. Simple. Because healthcare doesn't work just because there's a product that's cheap or a product that's affordable. Healthcare works because there's an ecosystem that's scalable. So by scalable, it means all these guys, insurance, clinicians, academia, government, policymakers, NGOs, all these guys play a role in healthcare. So for me, 5.8 complements what the product officer role does. So just doing that, no fun. With 5.8, a lot of fun.
Okay. So one of the last questions, we'll see there might be follow-ups on that. So when you think of hiring a product manager in GE, what are the things you look for?
That's actually, it took me a long time to internalize that answer because we did hire product managers when I started in my job. First thing is I consciously look for people who actually spend time being empathetic, and it's very, very difficult in an interview to find out whether somebody's empathetic or not. Imagine asking somebody, how often do you listen? All the time, go ahead, ask me more questions. So I think it's an art. It takes some time to figure out how to figure out if somebody's actually empathetic. It comes through demonstration of evidence over time. And you need to spend some time, especially in interviews. I spend a lot of time, it's more like a conversation than an interview. It's like, tell me a story about this. Tell me what happened. What was, and that person need not even have a product background in the first, I never had a product background. So to that extent, I know I might find a gem who has no product background but who is just empathetic. I think that's the foundational layer. That's first. Second, I think you need to be able to prioritize. Like I said, if your life is going to revolve around influence, you need to pick your battles. You can't go after 10 things at the same time. You need to be clear why you are prioritizing what you're prioritizing. So that's the second thing that I look for. And the last thing that I look for in a product manager is the ability to create your own vision. And it's the way I describe it to people. In fact, the team that I have right now, every one of them, I gave them a one-line job description. Their job description was, you will be the CEO for emerging market mother and child care, or you will be the CEO for emerging markets radiology. You will be the CEO for emerging markets oncology solutions. That's it. What that means, the person has to be able to internalize, which means you need to start with what problem am I solving for, and therefore what should I be. So the ability to set a vision, the ability to think about yourself as a CEO, not as a product guy. A product manager to me, or a product leadership role to me, is that of a CEO, which means you're starting with a problem, there is a business outcome, and there is a customer in between. That entire cycle, nobody else has the view other than a CEO. A program manager doesn't get that view. Supply chain guy doesn't get that view. Finance guy doesn't get the view. Nobody in the org has that end-to-end view as a product manager does. And for that reason, I think you need to find people who got that vision and thought process. So those are the three things that I look.
Great. Got one question?
So,
okay, last question.
So for these product managers, anyone you have hired who didn't have the domain knowledge in that particular area?
Yeah.
As of you have?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I have 7 people working for me, 4 people didn't have the domain.
Thank you.
They just came with these values. The 3 values that I spoke about.
Okay. So Vikram, thank you very much for your time.
It's been wonderful talking to you.
And I took a lot of notes, hopefully all of you did. I think the 3 words I'm going to take away are self-awareness, empathetic, and as a product manager, you only own the problem. So I think hopefully you got a lot of this. And Rahul, if I may use you to give a token of appreciation.
Thanks a lot, Vikram.
Thank you very much, Rahul. It was a pleasure.
Fantastic.
Wow, looks good. Thank you.